Namaskar and welcome to Indian Diplomacy, show on India's national broadcaster Doordarshan about Indian foreign policy, India's international relations, and India's involvement in key groupings and institutions that are shaping a better world order. Viewers, this episode is dedicated to understanding and dissecting a very important institution of which India is a core founding member. This is BRICS. Initially involving 5 countries, including India, it has now expanded to 10 member countries. It has added on 10 additional partner countries and is doing the rounds in the international discourse with a range of new ideas and suggestions to improving the state of the world. So what is BRICS in the new era all about? Is this a BRICS 2.0? And what are the major stakes and the major issues in which BRICS is forging new ground? This is the theme of the show. To discuss this, I'm really privileged to introduce you to a very eminent scholar who studies, writes, and analyzes BRICS and has been doing this for a long time. She's Director of Research at the Center for International Studies at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the United States, and is a well-published author on rising powers and BRICS in particular, Dr. Mihaela Papa. Dr. Papa, welcome to Indian Diplomacy.
Thank you so much for a kind invitation.
You had the BRICS Lab at MIT, and you have been researching this phenomenon that is now morphing into something else compared to what it was when it was founded in 2009. The Rio summit of the BRICS member countries witnessed a very interesting formation of 10 member countries assembling for the first time heads of government. And what stood out for me, Dr. Papa, was that the stern message that they sent out to the United States in particular and to its allies on a range of issues. They basically challenged and condemned what they called unilateral actions and coercive measures of the US on issues like trade tariffs, economic sanctions, and they also criticized the main US ally in the Middle East or West Asia, Israel, for violating international law and for launching wars and military strikes on Iran and the Palestinian people. This kind of, strong geopolitical messaging, we did not expect from BRICS, especially with the expanded format, but we are seeing it now. So I'd request you to first reflect on this BRICS as a geopolitical actor. Is it becoming more radical and more anti-Western with the addition of new members, as you see it? And is that why US President Donald Trump has, threatened publicly that he will impose additional trade sanctions on BRICS member countries or anyone else who supports what he calls the anti-American agenda of BRICS? So let's talk about this particular aspect, because BRICS members say that we are not against anybody and it's not targeted against the US, but then the US thinks it is so. And some of the BRICS' own comments and statements and formulations do suggest that there is a sharper anti-American edge that's coming in. So your thoughts on this fundamental question of what is BRICS? Is it an anti-Western grouping or is it becoming one?
Thank you so much. So this was indeed a milestone summit with all the BRICS in full glory in an expanded form. One area just to address first is this question of unilateral actions and coercive measures. And actually, no matter how diverse BRICS are, this was one area where they have always been consistent, that they were very much against unilateral actions and coercive measures, whoever imposes them, to the extent that membership criteria for BRICS, if you have sanctions on Russia, for example, you would not be able to enter BRICS. That would be like a veto trigger. So in that sense, there is consistency. There is, of course, in this particular declaration, they are going farther in terms of being more explicit and seriously condemning the issues that you mentioned, but there is a certain policy consistency here. That being said, we are seeing a bolder BRICS. I'm not sure I would say more radical. Because when we look at like anti-Americanism, and I think I have some issues with that word because BRICS is a huge collaboration. It cooperates on fashion, on media, not everything. There are issue areas where the challenge to the US is stronger, but there is such a huge cooperation where there is basically some areas where the United States invests in the very same things. So in terms of anti-Americanism, if that we use that word, I would say presidencies in 2023 and 2024 were more anti-American in the sense in 2023, that was when Iran became a member, and it has very clear anti-American stance in terms of both narratives and ideas. And also like 2024, like 2023, when there was all this talk about like actually South African ambassador to BRICS portraying the group as akin to like apartheid, like portraying the international system as akin to apartheid South Africa, where minority decides for the majority. And then you have 2024 with Kazan Declaration starting more strongly the mechanisms that can accelerate move away from the dollar, and at the same time pursuing this like world majority idea, which is back to their concept that the West might be unwilling or too slow to modernize, so it's time for BRICS to take off on their own. So in that sense, I would actually say that this summit was smoother and milder and less anti-American than the 2023 and 2024, if we wanted to use that word. Reason being is Brazil was the one setting the agenda. And the way it described BRICS, it positioned it as a political and diplomatic coordination for countries of the global South. And then President Lula framed it as a successor to the non-aligned movement, as the heir and manifestation of the non-aligned movement. So in a way, Brazil went out of its way to position it almost like the implementing agency for sustainable development goals. But where the catch is that on the US side, the situation changed dramatically because now we have President Trump, and President Trump is very clear that he believes that that system can be multipolar, but it's very clear that dollar dominance is the key to and very closely connected to the US power and the way the US sees its power. So dollar dominance was like preserving and fighting for dollar. That was like even mentioned in the campaign, and that's part of his legacy. So in a way, BRICS, President Trump is the first president who actually treats BRICS as a relevant group and develops policies to address the threat of BRICS. So, of course, what these policies are and whether they work, that's another question. But in terms of policy developments in the US, this is where we are now.
Right. So it's not so much that BRICS is becoming more radical, but we have maybe a radical presidency in the United States that looking at BRICS with a sharper edge, maybe. Dr. Papa, I also wanted your thoughts on the expansion itself. You know, Indonesia has joined this year. So now we have 10 member countries, the original Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, now accompanied by Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, United Arab Emirates, and Indonesia. What do you think this expansion is doing to the overall orientation and priorities of BRICS? Let us focus a bit on the new members. And they all obviously had a joint declaration at Rio at the 17th BRICS Summit. So to that extent, consensus and unity is there. It's not like they're totally divided. But on the other hand, the newer members probably bring newer focus areas and priorities, and they increase the the ambit of BRICS in terms of the number of issues that they're tackling. For example, Israel, you already mentioned Iran came in, and because Iran is a full member, they had to condemn Israel in the BRICS declaration, right? Because Iran would have pushed for it. Maybe Egypt also, because they're totally opposed to what has happened in Gaza. So what do you think these new members are doing? And do you think BRICS doubling of the membership from 5 to 10 is not a small thing, right? I mean, in fact, Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India even said that we have to redefine BRICS now, because BRICS were the initials of the 5 member countries, and now with 10 it makes no sense. So instead of calling it BRICS Plus, he said that actually it is building resilience and innovation for cooperation and sustainability, BRICS. So in other words, he's trying to say that, it's no longer those founding 5. So we have more members in the quote unquote the BRICS family. So what does a bigger family mean in your view for the organization, its orientation and priorities?
So just to say, I absolutely love his framing, like reframing of the BRICS. Usually it's said that like BRICS are like the building blocks, like the bricks to the modernized international order, but kind of finding different words makes a lot of sense. So the question of the entry of new members, it's when we think about just the narrative, it's more global weight, more geopolitical weight. So when every time BRICS countries start to list, like we have this percentage of this and this percentage of GDP, this percentage of population, so all of these numbers go up. Then the question is of new agendas. So every member, the way BRICS cooperation works is that every member brings its own agenda and own pet issues, and then somehow the group tries to incorporate them. And that's how the group up to now has developed over like 180 mechanisms was the last count by the BRICS academics. And right now you have a situation where all of these members also add new mechanisms. One important area is adding Indonesia. Indonesia has always been on the radar, like a country to add in terms of like BRICS recruitment, if one can say that, right? Yeah. Diplomatic recruitment, and especially because of the value of cultural dialogue and religious diversity. And now, of course, Indonesia, given that it is very much like BRICS-like in the way it was envisioned, large population, growth. So this was a country that was always on the radar. In terms of where we see the difference, I think when you ask countries why they wanted to join, and we actually did research on that, like why each one said like they wanted to join, and you get like a mix of economic prospects, different agenda items like transition to local currencies, a greater status, South-South cooperation. So you have a mix of different areas that they emphasize why they want to join. But once they do join, then you wonder like, okay, which one did what in terms of contribution? And all of the processes, we don't have records. It's not transparent, like, for example, how the sausage of the declaration was made. But you can, for example, see some of the language, like on Palestine, like the language on Gaza and Palestine is much longer than ever before. And some of the language is very similar to the language that Indonesia uses. Or if you look at like references to desertification, to forests, to new land restoration, then you can kind of think, oh, this is Egyptian diplomacy, because Egypt is very much a champion of desertification, anti-desertification fight. So there are some points in declaration which you can potentially trace to certain countries that are new, that have tried to basically push for them, and where they were championing the agendas that were later adopted.
Right. Dr. Papa, there's also this category I mentioned at the outset of partner countries. Now, they've named 10 partner countries, which presumably are like waiting for full membership, or are being kept in some kind of a middle ground for the moment, and then they will be graduated in. And this has got some very interesting mix of countries, again, from across the world, including some big heavyweights, large emerging market developing countries like Vietnam and Nigeria. So what do you think these partner countries are doing, and what is likely to happen eventually in terms of expansion? Because there was a lot of internal jostling among the original 5 about how many members to bring in and in what process. For example, Chinese wanted to bring in many more, and India resisted and all that. So now these partner countries have, some of them, the heads of state also came to the Rio summit as observers. So these countries, if you add up the partner countries and the 10 now, 10 full members. Then you have like a kind of like a G20 of emerging markets. It seems like without the G7 at all in it, So looking, gazing at the crystal ball, what do you think is going to happen with these partner countries, and how exactly do you see the fact that there are so many of them wanting to get in?
So, first of all, the question is like BRICS enlarged to new members. And it started adding partners before the new members were even socialized, even integrated properly. And one challenge, there has been like a cohesion challenge, and you have seen that, for example, difficulty in reaching consensus on foreign ministers meeting, after foreign ministers meeting, breakdown in communication on UN Security Council reform, trying to save the day on that during the Rio Declaration and trying to find the language for that. So partners basically come on top of this complex environment right now. And the partner category itself was introduced both to increase trade, promote economic cooperation, but also to be an outreach to Global South. So in a way, partners are supposed to be doing the connectivity and integration and basically making BRICS whole in areas where it is not. So the category itself is rather new, and it's not fully like the definition is not fully fleshed out, and presidencies have a lot of leeway. But before the partner category, you could be invited or you couldn't be invited. Members would continuously come to summits. They would continuously be in meetings. But now the partner category enables you to have some consistency and some invitations to be part. You have structured access to the BRICS mechanisms. So, for example, the summit, the foreign minister meeting, you could potentially endorse the declarations that are issued. And it can also serve as a stepping stone to future membership. But BRICS has been very careful not to overpromise. So it's not promising countries that join as partners that they will become members. It's also not promising that countries will be invited to all meetings. So it's very much like based on consensus and invitation, which means that those partners that are very active and know how to kind of make coalitions with existing members and have people who are members to push for them, and their agendas will do better than those who don't.
Right.
So,
right.
But
so it's
generally,
kind of a limbo.
It does increase the complexity of the group. Maybe one final point on that would be that the partner category will only be like in real action once some of the economic initiatives are in place. So you can totally imagine like the BRICS grain exchange. And if you do run the numbers, you could imagine how partners would be complementary in terms of food trade. And if there was a BRICS grain exchange, how these partners are very relevant to engage and basically trade with.
Right. So it's subtler than just being in the waiting room. But certainly there are these new external layer around the core membership is worth watching. Yes. Dr. Papa, you already mentioned outreach to the Global South, and Rio Summit, and generally also BRICS have always talked about Global South interests. And this time in Brazil, it seemed like it was it was peaking, the whole talk about Global South and least developed countries and their interests. And in fact, I have a very interesting quote from Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who said, "Without the Global South, international institutions seem like a mobile phone with a SIM card, but no network." So why do you think BRICS are now, pressing the accelerator on this Global South agenda?
So I think ultimately, like the bottom line here is the point of BRICS is to have greater voice and more agency. And then I'm wondering, like, do other Global South countries actually need BRICS to be their voice and agency? So in a way, that is a little bit complex. Of course, there are several arguments around Global South and BRICS being a representative that are a little bit, they don't sit really right. One argument would be that, you know, when you think about Global South, there is the spirit of solidarity, spirit of inclusion. When you look at like G77 action, everybody together, when you look at UNCTAD conferences, when you think about like decolonization battle, that was like, these are like massive diplomatic movements. They are not like privileged elite clubs where countries need to be waitlisted and outed that they want to join and then they don't join, or countries do these large negotiation campaigns like Algeria and never get in. So this is not like the spirit of Bandung that, like, for example, if we look at BRICS as a so-called successor of this like solidarity, inclusion, developing country movement ideas. So in terms of institutional design, I don't really see BRICS as being in that spirit. That being said, of course, the expansion suggests that it's trying to get there. But I wouldn't really take this like with kind of I wouldn't take it without a grain of salt. So
yeah. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, these are powerful developing countries, and point well taken, and they are not necessarily the most downtrodden. At least the original five. And you know, now there's also a question mark about China and whether you can even call it a developing country. It's a middle income country and has become a great power. So there are all kinds of complications there. Dr. Papa, last question I have for you, because we are running out of time, is BRICS institution building. You know, every summit, they announce new initiatives and new measures that will, and new mechanisms for cooperation and in different issue areas. Now, the ones that have been most talked about over the last decade are the new development bank and the contingency reserve arrangement. How are these going as per your reading and observation? And with the BRICS Plus or this new expanded format, what more, any new institutional innovations you think we will see in the horizon? So the question is, are BRICS just critiquing the inequalities and the injustices of the old Western-based, institutional order, or are they doing it simply to get more voting share or more voice in the existing ones like the UN and the Bretton Woods systems and all that, or are they parallelly also going to build an alternative world order itself through a very, very sustained set of institutions going forward?
So just to follow up on the question about Global South, what is really important is how are BRICS setting new agendas? They're setting new narratives. And the NDB especially is very important because it enabled the whole BRICS cooperation, because it served as an anchoring institution where countries were in a way had this joint investment and they needed to stay together and work together. So the way I see it is that the very fact that these institutions exist is very important because they show that there is institutional entrepreneurship. And it's not like sitting and criticizing the system. It's more like being in the arena, trying to invent new solutions, trying to define new problems that matter to the countries. And so the New Development Bank is in that way different than the contingent reserve arrangement. Contingent reserve arrangement was supposed to be the mini IMF, but it was more mini than the IMF because you don't have actually a portfolio that you can assess in terms of being active in times of crisis. So on the institutional front, without a New Development Bank, there wouldn't be 40 billion that went into sustainable development projects. So I think that is definitely a plus. But at the same time, the bank does not have the same membership as the BRICS group. It doesn't have enough contributions. It's not growing fast. It's not scaling up funding that fast. Of course, now the situation is changing with the new members, but there is a lot of work to be done. So I do see New Development Bank as having great prospects if the other countries are investing and if they want to contribute more. In terms of the future institutional innovation, there are two areas that I'm watching myself. So one area is where can existing institutions and processes be reframed so that they are easier to find coalitions around. So, for example, if you look at food issues, so food is a big area. If you look at forests, so these two issues are something that can really be redefined reframed in a different way and open new areas of cooperation. And for example, also link up to some other regional organizations like BRICS and ASEAN on food security cooperation and so on. Then the other aspect I'm looking at would be areas where new regulation is needed. And these are artificial intelligence, robotics, so that part, but also where regulation is not well developed, like the outer space. So this would be, if I was betting, this would be my bets. I'm not putting any money on it, but like these are some of the areas I'm watching where I feel that there is much more convergence if things are defined the right way and if there is political will and leadership.
Yeah, in fact, technology and AI were on the menu at the Rio summit, and there was a lot of discussion about regulating and also shaping the new rules around these emerging fields. So indeed, that's probably a futuristic area in which BRICS can come up with a position and come to the negotiating table with more advanced countries. So let me thank you, Dr. Mihaela Papa, for sharing so many, dense technical details about an organization that is changing in front of our eyes. It had become a little bit static with 5 members for a while, and some people thought it was even losing relevance. But now, with addition of new members, and there is definitely a buzz about BRICS now. And India is going to host the next BRICS summit. So here also, we are looking forward to taking on the baton of leadership for the coming year. And I'm sure that we will have many new ideas as well to bring to the agenda as the hosts. Thank you so much for sharing valuable insights, and much appreciate the dense research that you're producing on this very important global institution.
Thank you so much, and all the best for Indian diplomacy as it takes on the presidency, and all the best to you and the program.
So viewers, BRICS is not what it used to be. It is a bigger entity, and which brings with it a great deal of expectations about this institution, but also a lot of internal coordination challenges, and also the direction in which it is going. There may be different pulling and hauling in this direction and that direction, depending on the member states and their varying interests. But nonetheless, it has put up a united front at the Rio summit in Brazil in 2025. And we look forward to this enlarged BRICS and what it can do for global good. The Indian presidency of BRICS that is coming up in 2026 will be a defining one, and let's keep a close eye on how India shapes this second innings or new era of BRICS. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again next time. Until then, take care.